ETHNOS 2nd edition is literally sitting here on our table, and it will be maybe on your tables soon. It's going to be coming out quite soon. Potentially, all we know right now, potentially before the end of the year. If not at the end of before the end of the year, it will be like day one in January. Because board game companies like to put something out before December. If it's not before December, they usually wait till January. So I do know that they've landed or they're landing. So hopefully this will be in people's hands soon. We wanted today to talk to you about the differences between ETHNOS first edition and second edition. The changes, the maybe improvements, some will say.
Call them that.
And there's a short list because the game, for the most part, is ETHNOS.
Yeah, and this is a true second edition of ETHNOS. I know a lot of people, when Arceus Society came out, they were calling that like ETHNOS 2.0 because both of these games, ETHNOS second edition and Arceus Society, they are kind of built on the same system of the card play. However, I'll say that Arceus Society has gone in such a different direction with the way that scoring works and with the way that these different factions actually interact with the game, that it is almost its own different branching game with the same system. This is more of a solid re-implementation, second edition, new version, with not a ton that's different in the gameplay. So it is more of the ETHNOS that you know and love.
Yeah, really. Namely the area control aspect. Arceus Society kind of got rid of that for sort of a different sort of scoring mechanism. This one brings area control back, and not only that, it kind of doubles down on the area control, which we'll get to in a second, because that is some of the minor differences. The big difference, though, spoiler alert, is the look and feel of this game. You can see it right here on the table. This is a very different look. It's kind of set with a bit of an Asian theme. You've got all of these clans instead of factions. They're all different types of animals. The good news, for those of you who are fans of the original game, all of them but one in the base game are the same factions that you're familiar with.
They do still all exist. Every faction from ETHNOS is represented in the second edition.
And promos for the second edition.
Including the promos from the first edition that have come back as new animals. Everything has kind of got this new theme. So it's not exactly what you'd expect. You're not sitting down and looking for, okay, well, where are the dwarves? Well, you're not going to find the dwarves. They didn't just, turn the dwarves into animals. They have the same ability, but it is all kind of done in a different, unique way, I think, that maybe fits this new theme and this new art style.
Yeah, for example, the giants from the original game that had this extra component, they are the bear clan in this one. The merfolk are the koi fish. We've got, these were the trolls.
The trolls before they gave out the scoring tokens.
And now they're the foxes. So you get the idea. All of those are represented here. Again, represented both in this base game. There is one, the halflings, that were taken out of this base game, and they are still available as a promo. They have a promo pack of 4 clans. That's the other interesting thing. There are now 16 total potential clans.
3 completely brand new clans for second edition, with the caveat that one of those new clans is in the box. The other 2 are going to be the new promos. For second edition. However, it should be, they're planning on having these promos available. They haven't said how, but this is not going to be a thing that they're keeping scarce.
Yeah, we will try to get this information for you, and I'll add it down here. I literally will call them and try to get this information as we edit it. But yeah, if you're sitting there saying, wait a minute, are they going to have promos that I really want and I can't get? I'm sure they're going to make those widely available.
It sounds like it.
4 promo clans in one box, one of which actually comes with a whole nother board. So I'm guessing certainly conventions, but maybe even some of the first available copies of the game.
Yeah, might come with them.
Will have promos at your local game store. I'm not sure, but we'll get that information for you. But let's talk about it a little bit more. Obviously, like we said, the new look. This artwork evokes, for me, things along the lines of like Seasons, Veil of Eternity. Like this, like Ryan, I put this board out on the table and Ryan said, well, that looks like it could be a new board for Veil of Eternity somehow. It has this, like I always say, this sort of cool cartoony vibe to it, where you look at these characters and go, oh man, that's a Saturday morning cartoon I would have loved to watch.
I love the artwork here.
Yeah, it's really, really good. They've got a lot of good iconography. I will point out, in terms of some of the graphic design choices, the color or the suits of the cards, which are related to the different areas that you're going to be placing control, that's down the side of the card. One difference here is the icon for the faction, or the clan rather. In the old game, it was just a little tiny icon. It was actually kind of hard to see. You mostly looked at the artwork.
Yeah. And the banner was huge in the first game. It went like all
it was
the way.
The color of the card. You really saw the color. In this one, the color of the card is down the side. They have added colors to the faction icons, which while you're playing at first can be a little confusing because you're playing this and thinking, oh, it's green. But that's just the faction color. It's not the color of the card.
Which I love all the new graphic design. That is the one decision I question, because already I'm looking, I make the same mistake already. Like, okay, there's a green card, there's a green card. No, it's 2 shades of green, 2 kind of different,
Yeah, just look at the side of the card. The other good news there is storing it.
Sure, that does make it easier to sort.
When you're sorting and putting it away, I can tell you, having those colors is amazing, because sorting them before, you really had to look at every card. This one, you can just look in the upper left-hand corner and sort them.
If I'm recalling correctly, and I think I am, the artwork was the same for all of them, right? Like, you could just look at the artwork.
Yes, and now, this is not the case. Here's 2 bears right here, and they're slightly different, as you can see.
They're different artwork.
Which, again, is, in my opinion, very cool.
Oh, sure, I love that, but it just means you do need, like, so I could see the symbol helping in that situation, because it's not just, here's a bunch of dwarves and they all look like dwarves.
And I think that was the decision behind it. When they wanted to do new art, they thought, well, we need something so that they can be easily sorted.
I mean, they all still have the same abilities. So functionally, the game works the same way. You're choosing a certain number of these, you're shuffling them all together in the deck, you're using the row, you're drafting them. So gameplay between ETHNOS and this has not changed at all. And even the way the abilities work, with the exception of the new one we'll talk about, they work identically to the way they work. So for players that were really familiar with ETHNOS, it's just about figuring out, like, oh, okay, this is the merfolk.
This is that
okay,
one.
I
this
understand.
Is that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the other things that we mentioned this earlier, this is kind of what feels like a subtle thing, but I think with more plays, we'll see that this emphasis that they've put on the area control being more obvious. A few things they've done in that respect. All of the point tokens that you shuffle up at the beginning, you put out here, they encourage the area control a little bit more, because, first of all, there are no 0s or 2s. So in the original game, there was like a couple 0s and 3 2s. So some of the values of these areas as you played were just, on average, going to be lower.
Yeah.
In this one, they've gotten rid of those. Not only that, they've added like a 12 here. They have a couple 10s. Yeah. I think there may have only been 1 10 in the original. So the overall points available from the area control is higher. The other thing they've done on that front is they've taken the halflings out of this game, and the halflings are available as a promo. Yeah. Of course, they are the opossums. It does start to get confusing to describe when we're using the old factions and the new one.
Yeah.
But the opossum farmers,
what were previously known as,
which were previously known, the artists formerly known as the halflings, they are in the promo pack. And if you remember, the halflings were that faction. I always leaned on the halflings. Yeah, if they were in the game, all you had to do is focus on the points you could score from the tribes that you were playing, or the parties, because you could more easily get larger parties and 15 points with the halflings, or the opossum farmers in this case. Those are a promo, and they've been replaced with the raccoons in this one, which yet again bring more of an emphasis back to the area control. So like we said, when they wanted to sort of double down on at least making people score more of their points, or inviting people to score more of their points from the area control, they've done that with the raccoons, because when you play a raccoon faction and you put your token out on the board, you're also able to pull one of the raccoon coins, flip it over, and it's going to have an additional value that you can put in the current era of that area. So if I played in this green area, it was worth 4, but now I've put a raccoon coin up there, and now it's worth 8. Yeah, that's a lot extra.
That is a lot. Granted, the raccoons aren't going to show up in every game, but this does just show that this game was designed from that idea of area control. And honestly, I feel like when Archaeus Society came out, a lot of people in our comments online were like, we really miss the area control. And it feels like they thought the same thing, because and David said it was a subtle difference, and it is subtle, but if you've played a lot of ETHNOS, which I have played a ton of it, you know that when those 0s come out, it's like, I'm not even going to bother. But now it's like the baseline is 4, which is almost, half of what you normally get. Like you get like 3 or 6 points normally for making a set. So it's like that claiming these objectives becomes way more valuable.
Yeah, I think that's going to be something that after a few plays, you're going to see very clearly like, oh, there's a lot more going on. I played it at CMON Expo recently, and even then I could tell, at least for my own play style, that I was doing a lot more of that to be competitive in the area control instead of chasing the big factions. And largely due to the fact that when I used to play old Ethnos, I played with the halflings a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I never didn't want to not play with them because I liked going after the card sets. But yeah, this brings the area control into a clearer light. The other thing we wanted to talk about were some of the other new factions. Now,
there are three total, right?
There's 3 more. So there's 4 in the promo pack. That includes the Opossum Farmers, which were the halflings in the original game. It includes the moles. And the mining moles are what they're called. These were the fairies. Now, the fairies were a promo for the original game, so they weren't in the base game either. Those are still available in this new promo pack, and they're the miner moles. What they do is allow you to, when you play them, you're able to swap your party that you've played with someone else's so that you're taking theirs of the same value, the same number of cards. But when you take them, you're able to do whatever they do on the board, which is kind of cool too. But then there are 2 more which are completely new. One of those are the platypus.
Yeah, the platypus fishermen.
They are the platypus sailors.
Oh, sailors, sorry.
Close.
That was
close. But they work a little like the koi fish or merfolk from the original game in that whenever you're placing out with a platypus as a leader, you're going to go up that number of spaces on their track. And whenever you hit the platypus spots, you're going to trigger a bonus. Now, the bonus here is really interesting. You just see the icon here, but the bonus is this escalating ability to manipulate the pieces that you've already put on the map, which in the first game, nothing allowed for that to happen.
Makes sense. They're sailors. They travel around.
And it is very cool. Like, so the first one allows you to take any one of your pieces that are out on the board and move it to any other space. The second one allows you to take 2 from one space, but only move them to an adjacent space. And then the third, it kind of escalates from there. So you're able by the third round, potentially, if you've gone up there, to make some big shifts.
Yeah, big
like when
swings.
people aren't expecting it. Because when you play Ethnos, you look out here and go, oh, well, no, I've got this one on lock.
Yeah,
right.
Unless you're playing with the raccoons, because then
unless and the platypus, because the platypus might let me move 2 guys from here to here. Now all of a sudden I'm winning where Ryan thought he had it with just one thing.
Or you're abandoning a spot that's only worth 4 for the new spot that's now worth 8. Like
right.
it lets you kind of react a little bit to the shifting state of the game.
And the last one is the Cat Monks clan. The Cat Monks clan has kind of one of the more interesting processes to follow when you play it. When you play the cats, you're going to do what you do normally on the board. Then based on the strength or the number of cards, you're going to add a number of cards plus the cards you're discarding back to the display. So if you've ever played Ethnos, you know sometimes the display can get down to nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
And you're just top decking. This one allows someone to replenish that. Then they're able at the end of their turn to draw any 2 cards from that new display. So that's kind of the rub in Ethnos is when you play, you end up with no cards.
Right.
In this case, you're getting some cards back. Kind of like the Wizards do the same thing.
Slightly similar.
Yeah. And by the way, speaking of Wizards, the card that does that in this game are the Raven Wizards.
At least they kept that one.
It's the only one that is effectively the same name.
But it's a good power. It's a strong power. And it can also really speed the game up because going through that deck is how the game ends. So if you're playing big parties of 6 cat people and adding 6 cat monks and adding 6 cards, you're going to get to the end.
Frankly, like you said, someone could use that even if they're wanting to just end the game.
Yeah.
You know, if you've gotten down to the point where you're like, where are the dragons?
Right.
And we haven't mentioned this. And again, we actually haven't mentioned a lot about how Ethnos plays.
So we're assuming that you probably at least have.
We're assuming you've played it. The elevator pitches, you're playing the cards, different sets of cards to get area control out here. But the driving factor of each of the 3 rounds that you play are that there are 3 dragons in the bottom half of this deck. And that is probably what adds the most excitement to this game.
For sure.
And tension, because you're sitting there collecting cards every turn. But if the dragon comes out, if the 3rd dragon comes out, the era ends. Yeah. So inevitably, more than one player at the table is going to get caught having been chasing another set to play when that last dragon comes out.
Every time.
You know, and there are situations where the dragon comes, and then the next dragon's right next to it.
Doing 6 cards in a go, That could happen.
Yeah, all those things happen and add a lot of tension. My point being with the cats is if you play a big cats, you could draw a bunch of cards and potentially get that last dragon.
Good.
If 2 are out already.
If you think you're winning, that's a good strategy.
But those are all the differences. And just to give you a sense, grab that old board to give them another.
Which, you know what? I never hated this board. Some people really disliked it.
I wasn't a giant fan. It's pretty small, which is fine for this game. But it is, this one offers a lot more opportunity and a lot more table presence for when all your pieces are out here.
Yeah.
And the pieces are far more ornate.
Oh, the production value of this game in general is much higher.
And most importantly, those pieces actually stack well.
Stack
the other ones
easily.
would stack, but they would get pushed around way too easily. These are far more ornate and they stack a lot better.
Really good.
But yeah, the old board looked like this. And the front of the box looked like this. Now, a lot of people like this art.
I mean, I never had a problem with it. It felt like old school Lord of the Rings style.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it is definitely a style. I think sort of the newer crowd of board gamers might find this a little bit more appealing. But like I said at the beginning,
still do find this more appealing.
It's going to be divisive. We definitely find this more appealing.
I love the way this looks.
I like a lot of color. I like vibrant, cartoony, when they're cool artwork. So this one speaks to me quite a bit. But that is ETHNOS 2nd edition. I know a lot of people have been excited about this. Like I said earlier, it's coming very soon. You'll be able to play it very soon. If you've never played ETHNOS,
this is your chance.
This is a game to have in your collection.
Absolutely.
It's always been that. Yeah. This version of ETHNOS is a game to have in your collection. I still have it in my collection.
I do too.
I probably will still keep it for nostalgic reasons.
Oh, you think so? I will replace mine. I don't think I'll have that much nostalgia.
I'm gonna keep this too for sure. But it's kind of hard for me because I was introduced to this one ironically at a CMON Expo in 2017 or something like that. Ago. And we played and we played and we played.
Oh yeah,
Thank you, Marty from Rolling Dice and Taking Names.
Oh,
he was the one who introduced it to me. He was the one. Have you guys played ETHNOS? You got to play it. And then we all just played it. And he's like, hey, remember I introduced you to that game. But anyway, if you have any questions about this at all, please make them in the comments below. We'll get down there and answer whatever we can, whatever we didn't answer during the video. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.